Hello, this is a short video to explain why Baroque painting is different than other painters, and what I mean by liquid siding. My name is Michael Root, and I've been working on older houses for 20 years, 16 of those years in business for myself. In that time, I've developed a painting method that I believe is equal in durability to most vinyl siding and windows, but still maintains the historical integrity of your house. Painting your siding and windows isn't just about what color your house is. It's an integral part of protecting your house from the harsh Nebraska elements. Keeping it maintained properly is part of the upkeep of your biggest investment, your house. It's like changing the oil in your car. But not painting your house at all, or hiring a cheap painting contractor, is more like not putting oil in your car. The result can be total failure of your siding and be very expensive. Here is some information that I hope helps you make a good decision. My liquid siding method consists of a 3-step process. First, and most importantly, completely stripping any loose or failing paint off of your house. My double primer system, and of course the highest quality paint I know of, Duration from Sherwin-Williams.
Believe it or not, this old paint is the perfect illustration of why we strip paint. This house was painted 12 years ago with the cheapest paint job you can imagine. They just sprayed on primer and paint. Here, and here, where it's smooth, means that before the last paint job, all of the paint had simply fallen off from neglect. By simply that fact, this raw wood from the cheapest of paint jobs has lasted 12 years. It's in good shape. I can't even scrape it off. But where there's old alligator paint, it's completely failing. Raw wood, smooth, in good shape. Old alligator paint, completely failing. That's all.
Ultimately, I believe in proof, and here it is. I've been in business for 16 years, and I check up on the houses that I've painted over the years to see what works and what doesn't. I stripped this house in 1995. These pictures are taken in 2010, and as you can see from the paint, it is still pristine, although a little dirty. So I actually can't answer the question, how much longer will stripping the paint down to raw wood make my paint job last? The clock is still running. Here is a classic example of what happens to a house when it isn't painted correctly. This house is just down the street from me, and I drove by it every day while it was being painted. There are 3 things I tell people never to do when painting a house. The contractor that painted this house did the first 2. Number 1, don't power wash in lieu of scraping loose paint, because paint is harder than wood, and if you use enough pressure to remove the paint, you will ruin your siding, which I see all the time. The very best case scenario is you're going to get a horrible job of removing the loose paint off your house. Number 2, work the primer in with a brush. If the primer isn't worked into the wood and the cracks of the old paint, you are very simply wasting your time, and your paint job will not last more than 2 years. This house looked fine its first summer. By the end of the first winter, it was starting to peel, but after only 2 winters, 2 years, it is now visibly peeling from the street. They'll be lucky if they don't lose their siding completely. Cheap paint jobs are not quick, temporary fixes. They often cause more damage than they help. Number 3, always drop the storm windows when you paint a window, and never caulk in a storm. This is what happens when you don't drop storm windows when painting. You end up creating a dam at the bottom of the window where the rain collects, then seeping into the wood and causing wet wood and dry rot. The carpentry to fix these windows cost as much as painting the entire house. Often, by the time you see peeling paint, it's too late. Next is an example of my 2-coat primer method.
Here is an example of old-growth cedar. This house was built in 1883, so it's pushing 130 years old, but yet this old-growth cedar siding is in fantastic shape. But it is also what we call thirsty wood, and that's why we use XM primer. Notice how that wood, or that primer is just soaking into that wood. When that dries, that'll almost become like plastic. And then we put another primer over the top of that. Here's a stripped windowsill. It's been stripped and sanded, and the wood is in really good shape, but it's what we call thirsty wood. It's very porous. So we use what's called XIM, a very thin primer. Here, Rick's going to put some on now. And just watch how it absorbs in to that wood, especially into the crack right there. You can see the capillary action taking it up into this piece of wood. So here's an example of putting a second coat of primer over our XIM primer. We do this because the XIM is so thin, we need something that will fill in the cracks and also bond to the XIM primer.
Finally, we use what is, in my opinion, the best paint on the market for our weather conditions here in Nebraska, Duration Paint from Sherwin-Williams. Duration Paint is actually based on a completely different resin than any other paint. Sherwin-Williams has an exclusive patent on it. It comes with a lifetime guarantee. Now, as with any paint, that guarantee only applies if it is applied to primed raw wood. Yet another reason to strip paint. So why not just get new siding and windows? First of all, there is inherent monetary and aesthetic value to the nature of an old house. But in the end, it's simply a monetary question. Will you recoup the enormous cost of new siding and windows? The fact is, new siding and windows aren't forever. They fade, they stain, they crack, or they simply fall apart all the time. And when a window salesman tells you that he can lower your energy costs by 30%, when they did those tests against old double-hung windows, they actually didn't put a storm window on them, which is hardly fair. I don't know of any houses in Nebraska that don't have storm windows. The University of Vermont did a study comparing new replacement windows to properly maintained old historic double-hung windows with proper storm windows, and found that there was only a 60-cent difference per month per window in the average house over the course of a winter. So that means in the average house, you're going to save $10 to $12 a month, not even enough to pay the interest on the loan for new siding and windows. Finally, even if you're not sure how long you're going to live in your house, a quality paint job is still a good investment. If you move out in 4 or 5 years and you have to repaint, you haven't saved any money. Ask any realtor. People are visual. When you're trying to resell your house, you can list the square footage and the age of the air conditioner, etc., but none of that will make as much of an impact as the way the house looks. Baroque Painting has been in business a long time and has a great reputation for doing quality work in the historic districts of Lincoln. And trust me, people in those neighborhoods definitely pay attention to who does the work. Unlike most warranties, mine is transferable to the next owner, because I know if I do it right, it will last. Baroque Painting, where it looks better and lasts longer.